and welcome to our Coffee and Hustle podcast. Today, this is such a passionate type of podcast that you are just going to enjoy. Tune in and listen in because we're going to talk about find your path to lasting emotional well-being. And what I mean by that is to become an emotional investor, not an emotional spender. And I think that's such a great way to look at things a lot of times, especially today. And what we're going to talk about is investing in your emotional well-being. And so it's so crucial and fulfilling in your life now. And I think as we get older, we start kind of reflecting back and looking at these things. And our younger generations are really more in tune to what's happening around us. And rather than spending your emotions impulsively, and we're learning how to and invest them wisely. And so our podcast guest today, she's really going to kind of enlighten us and explain to us about all of our emotional experiences, that how they're all interconnected together. And she's going to introduce herself to that holistic approach and that well-being and how it works and how she works with clients to build that deeper understanding, our bodies and minds and how it's all connected. So I would like for her to introduce herself, tell us a little bit more about her business, what they do, and what they offer. So take the mic, Sarah, come on onto the podcast and tell us all about you.
Awesome. Well, I am Sarah Gwin. I am a therapeutic coach for Huntsville Integrative Therapy. I also have an office in Florence, and that's Renaissance Mind and Body. I have a lot of clients in Huntsville, though. I'm very passionate about that community. I work with individuals and couples and families. So I do a lot of nervous system regulation. I also do somatic work. I'm a trauma-informed weight trainer as well. So we will take your fight, flight, freeze response and put movement with it, right? So, if you're a fighter, we'll do things like rowing and farmer carries after we verbally process, right? You're a freeze response, we're going to do like big movements, that kind of thing. With couples and families, we work to build agreements and boundaries, and how can we listen to understand? How can we create? How self-aware are we, right? We talk about that emotional investment. I think of it like a bank, right? Are we making deposits, or are we taking withdrawals from our partner and from our relationship? And so we learn together. We're teaching each other, and hopefully I'm creating a safe space and container for clients to feel like they can get really comfortable with themselves and really move from that place. So.
Well, I want to talk about something that you did just say, and that was the balance of that emotion. And what did you say? Something about the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty interesting. It's the way that you guys are doing things. It's just so natural. You're using the word holistic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real medication in the therapy. It's more of that tune in of what's going on with you in house, right? You're in house. And you said something about the bank. So there was that part of the article that I thought was interesting, and how they compared it. And you guys did it on your website. You compare it like a 401 investment.
Mm-hmm.
We put $100 in and expect money back, right?
Right.
Or we take a loss. I think a majority of us probably can say, I think we take losses more than we do gains. Do I feel that same vibe? I think that when you're looking at that, so when you're talking about the nervous investment, what do you mean by that? What do you do with that kind of process?
So we have clients that, if they're going on, antidepressants, anything that they're needing medically, they're going to see a psychiatrist from that. They're not going to get that in our practice, right? We're going to help facilitate, and hope bring healing to them, or help them find that healing, right? So when we talk about the nervous system, we are all born with one, right? When we're created, if we're in stress and a tiger's chasing us, we're immediately going into fight. I have to run as fast as I can. Well, now we don't live in the wild anymore. And so we still get triggered, we still get, dysregulated, And because of that, we still think that the tiger is still chasing us, right? So we teach or hopefully help clients to learn how to regulate their nervous system by doing things that they're aware of. If I'm a freeze response, right, I'm going to completely shut down on myself. I'm not going to be able to move. I'm not going to be able to make a decision. I'm going to feel paralyzed. Well, we have to get our nervous system up into our window of tolerance, right? And so how do we do that? And that does look like investment, right? That looks in like noticing, starting to notice when we feel dysregulated.
And I think that's something to be said with that, because in some ways or another, like, I know this sounds crazy, but I've been going through my own personal emotions here in the last especially in 2023. And then toward the end of the year, I've been, dealing with my own diagnosis of, getting diagnosed with breast cancer.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the mind shift was like, oh my gosh, here's this news. And then how do you process that? And then where do you go from there? And I felt like there was this dream, and I know this is kind of all so off subject, but you just mentioned something about running from animals. Well, one night I had this dream that I was running from dinosaurs,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so real. I was out of breath. I woke up going, oh my gosh. And I literally looked it up, and it was just like the chain of events and life changes are right in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how do I handle this? So I think in some ways or another, you're like, if you're not really watching or listening to that intuition of what's happening to you, it could be detrimental, because some people come to you and go, all right, you've got cancer. Oh my gosh, you should be breaking down, and you should be crying. You should be throwing a fit. You should be mad. You should be angry. And I'm like, no, let's find out what's going on, and how do I process this, and how do I handle this, because I don't have time for that emotion. So I kind of put that to the side. And then when I got some other news that was much more positive, then I was like, I actually released that energy into that because I felt more positive because I got the news I was looking for. So I kind of felt like I was more involved in my life. But when you say that, I don't think that we're doing enough of that.
Agreed.
I think that in some ways or another, we're not really investing time in ourselves. We're giving so much to everyone else, like, our partner, our children, our family. We're burdened with like all of these things, and we don't even know what's happening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. In our culture, agreements and boundaries aren't acceptable, right? We are, especially in the South. We're supposed to give, and with females too, right? If you're a mother, females have to give, and we are expected, right? It's not all gender. I mean, it's not all females, but a lot of times in the South, it feels that way, right?
Yeah.
We feel as if we have to give. We have to stay later in work. We have to, bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan. And having boundaries, I can do that because of how it's going to make you feel, right?
Yeah.
If it makes you feel okay, we'll be all right. But if I create a boundary and says, no, I can only stay till 5:30, I can't do any further, I'm going to be my best until 5:30. But if I give you till 7:30, right, and I don't really feel it or need it or can do it or am capable of it, now my behavior is going to come out sideways. So
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I saw a podcast that a lady was talking about her percentage. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, if her husband says I'm at 25%, then she would pick up the other percentage.
Correct. Yeah.
It was a one-on-one partnership, and they would sit down, and then if their bank, I think it's what it was their bank. They called it their bank. If their bank was at 15% or she was lower than his percentage, they literally would sit down together and do it together. But you made a very good point. So, in some ways, we may say the stigma of Southern women. We were taught as young girls that if we didn't have anything to say, keep it yourself.
Yeah.
It was improper to say something bad about somebody, or, you had an opinion about something, you kept your mouth shut.
Yeah.
We were the servers. The men ate first. The women cooked, cleaned, and served their men. That's it.
Yeah.
It was expected for women to get married right after high school. And so there was that expectation of that's what we were drilled over and over and over. And we were also, our lifestyle was always picked for us. Like, we were told that we should marry a man with money, that we shouldn't, we didn't have that. No one said, go get an education, go get a college degree. You didn't have that. I was like, I'm going to school, I'm going to college. I'm not getting married till I finish college. You know what I mean? I was like, I broke some of those barriers because I did not feel that that was me.
Yeah.
However, I was very quiet until one day I just had enough. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to say what I have to say, because now I can say, no, I'm not going to do something. I'm okay with that. And so I've learned just to go, nope, that's not going to happen for me.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to be a client for me. No, that's not going to happen today. I feel like when I've done that, because I was listening to some people saying, if you don't get whatever is bothering you out, it is going to hold you back. And I felt like, okay, it's time for me to express myself. I'm going to say what I have to say. So in some ways or another, I think I agree with you on all of those aspects, especially when it comes to certain things and certain things that we are as women expect. And so I think there's a point in time where we're like, we want our life back and our identity, we want it back. And once we get it, everything else falls in place.
Well, it's not a selfish thing, right? To want that. And we're taught that. And I think, that goes with all humans. But especially women is if we have a voice, right? We have a say, it's a selfish thing. And what I find, especially even in couples, is women will stay quiet, or the man will, or what if, same-sex partners, it doesn't matter. It gets to a place where now I'm hoarding my emotions. Now it's a trap, right? It's not fair to my partner now that they have to pretend and play games because they don't know what I'm feeling. Yet I've been taught I can't say it. And so now my behavior is coming out other places. And so the truth is how do we create a way to be able to stay in our integrity? I talk about this all the time. How can I stay in my integrity? How do I stay in my peace? That looks like nervous system regulation throughout the day. And that looks like clear communication. Clear is kind. If I'm clear with you and I'm direct with you, and I tell you from the story I'm telling myself, the way I feel about this, I don't think I can do that today because I'm not going to give you more. Now, if I give you more than what I have, I'm resentful. And now I've got a tally sheet, right? Especially in partnership, well, I did this, 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 and this for you. Right? And now you want me to do this. Well, no, I did it because you asked and I said yes. Right? And so I think that's really pivotal for us to start going. It's okay to have boundaries and agreement. It's actually so loving.
But that's that part when you go, amen. Amen. I hear you, because I think there's a part where you're like, when you come to someone that has the knowledge you have, it makes sense of all the thoughts that you were thinking. Like, that it's there, and that you're suffering from it. Down deep, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I handle these emotions? Because just like you said, if we are not able to release that, if we're not able to say what we feel here and we hold it, not only is it unhealthy, we start deteriorating, our health goes down, stress factors, all of our things that we think that we can control internally starts getting out of control. And I think that coming to someone like you, knowing the fact that there is someone like that it's not just about medication, it's about your mental, and how do you express that? Is the partners usually receptive to that? Are they able to go, wow, I didn't realize that? Do they have those moments, or how do they normally handle that once somebody releases that in one of your sessions? What is that?
Yeah, we have to reframe it, right? We have to reframe. A lot of times we want to be like, well, you and I don't like, and I want, and so it takes a person to be able to go, hold on. What do you think they're saying, right? Let's talk about how it feels. I feel misunderstood and sad when you ignore me, right? Now the partner can go, does that make sense to you? Like you don't have to agree, but does it make sense? Well, that makes sense, right? That's a full statement. That makes sense. I didn't agree, right? We were talking about how your body, right? That's why somatic tools are so important. So we're women, and again, I'm going to go back to women in the South, are scared of anger. We're scared of rage. We're scared of that emotion. And I will say some men are too. And so I teach, it's a safe place for you to be able to get it out. Anger turned inward is sadness. So if you can get that feeling out of your body, I'm feeling upset and I'm shoving it down. Now I'm a pressure cooker. I'm feeling upset and I'm shoving it down, right? So if you can come into my office and we can slam a 25-pound pancake, or a sandbag, and I can say, I really felt misunderstood by my mom, and you're just throwing the pancake down, right? You're suddenly starting to feel all that release out of your body that you've held in for so long.
Do you think, in some ways or another, when you're emotionally investing into something like this, what ages are you starting to see more and more people? Like, are you seeing that younger generation more than you see them, like, or the middle to the older, or are you kind of seeing that age group that's between the 25 to 35 group? Like, who is that audience to you? Like, how do we get those people over to you? Because I think that's so important to know that there's not a limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no limit.
Yeah. So I have late teens up into their 60s and 70s. We have other practitioners and clinicians that are working with younger. While it's so important. I have a family, with teenagers, and the mom and dad show up every time with the younger children, and they're like, we're ready. We know you feel misunderstood, right? We create agreements around family contracts on how can we, okay, if I'm going to give up something that's detrimental to me, if I'm going to ask, and it feels like, especially if it's a youth, if it's a teen, right? I'm going to give up this self-harming thing or something that's it's an addiction. What can we replace it with, right? So if I'm going to take away the thing that you've been coping with, I want in that agreement, we're going to replace it with something that's beautiful, that's fulfilling, that's safe and healthy, right? So that now our body feels you didn't take away the thing. You gave me something that is going to help me, right?
That's amazing because, gosh, where were y'all at when I was this age? Like, where were y'all the whole time? Because, back in those days, I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We make fun of the generations and whatever we see reels about people making fun of different generations.
Mm-hmm.
But come on.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that we were told to suck it up, Buttercup.
Mm-hmm.
We were told to lock it away and not address it.
Yeah.
That it's going to pass and that everybody feels this way and just to get over it.
Yeah.
We were told, now, I'm not saying that we're not resilient and tough and, because we were kids that were locked in our homes with no mom and dad in it.
Yeah.
Trying to eat something from a can, you know what I mean? And so that survival instinct of what we were brought up in when we grew up was those commercials at night going, do you know where your children are at? You know what I mean? I remember those commercials.
I do too.
Right. And at the end of the night, of course, the American flag played and then the TV station was static. But however, we know times have changed, right? We know that we're trying to feel more. However, when we talk about these things, we're starting to see not only are we dealing with these things and the things that you're trying to help do, but we've got a real problem with our mental health here. We've got a huge increase and it's all ages. It's not just the older generation. It's not just the younger generation. We're talking about every age. And I'm thinking that COVID pretty much had a lot to do that.
Yeah.
When people start thinking about locking someone up and you can't go anywhere and you're isolated and you're stuck in a room and the only time you have interaction. And I can understand how our younger generations probably are just like, how do you handle this thing? But don't you see that are you seeing that increase because of that? Or was this something that because you guys are offering something that's so uniquely different that people are going, wow, this is just a great way to really feel like we're in control of our emotions?
I think people are just now we're all connected, right? We have information. Our parents didn't have that, right? So they didn't have the tools that we have today. But the thing is we can't bypass the sadness and anger and fear and trauma that we gathered from their lack of tools, right? And so we want to give people an experience to be able to heal from that and find peace from it. So we are seeing people just because when we were locked down for so long, and it's why you had a pandemic and an epidemic of divorce, is because the truth had to come out, right? We had busied ourselves so much that we could distract it. Well, now everyone's desperate. They're like, no, we've gone feral. And we got to get some help. And so they're desperate. They're very curious and desperate and willing to try new things. Some people, it's funny when I say, I think we need to get into, I will tell people, I will say, okay, when you get into your minivan, I want you to yell as loud as you can. And they'll be like, wait, what? You want me to do what? Because you've just unloaded. We have to regulate, right? I want you to yell as loud as you can. And it scares people to get in touch with that. I'm not saying go and rage. I'm saying let it out, right? You've been stuck inside. We've been stuck inside, and we now need to release that so that we can have the emotional capacity and the expansiveness to be available for our family and friends.
Yeah, and I think that's so true because, with so much uncertainty and the media is just vomiting information out. I mean, come on, we all know it is. And then we've got social media.
Yeah.
The layers of impact that's happening to us as adults and younger generation, I think we're not regulating it, and we're not going aware of that. Maybe this information that we're taking in is actually harmful to our knowledge, and we have to be in full control of going, let's turn off the news. Let's get off social media for a little bit. Let's take a break.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it Willie Nelson's? He wrote, him and his sons wrote the song "Turn Off the TV and Build a Garden," right? And that's exactly. And what we don't recognize is we think we can just watch it. We think we can just scroll and it not affect us. It is. It's affecting all of it's in the fibers of our being. It's how we wake up because we've been
we
seeing
measure
it.
everything we measure everything. We measure how many people like something or how many people commented on it compared to someone else. And I know that sounds so silly, but there's just people out there that's what they live by. They live there. And if they just took away from that and really go get themselves grounded, go stand out in the grass and just put your feet in it.
Yes.
And just ground yourself and look around you and take a deep breath and watch the birds fly. That moment of like feeling connected, you will start realizing that you are not connected. You need to reevaluate your life. And so I think that in some ways, when we look at mental health, during that time when you said there was a high number of divorces, there was a lot of truths coming out, right? And people that we thought that were happy really wasn't happy. And Facebook showed it, like, look at us, we're a great family, look at our great children, and it was all falling apart.
Yep.
And everybody was like, wow, we never knew, because the facade of social media, if we really took it apart, it's a facade. We
100%.
know that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your some of the services that you guys offer, and I thought this was the one that there's three that I wrote down. There's one called DBT, and then the EMDR, and the other one was rhythmic. I may not pronounce it right. Rhythmic exercises. Can you explain those three? Because I thought those were really interesting services that you guys offer.
Well, Stephanie is my colleague. She's the one that actually does DBT and EMDR. DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. So it's a mindfulness it's not technique, it's a full-on modality. So it was created really for personality disorders, and it was created by, I don't want to butcher her name, Marsha Linehan, and her memoir is Unreal, and it's about how she came out of what she said her mission was, to help people get out of hell and mentally, and she was going through it herself, and she created this modality. I mean, it's an incredible thing. It's over all over the world, and her work is changing. And so Stephanie specializes in trauma and personality disorders, and she does youth and adolescence group, and as well as even parenting support. So, and she is also certified in EMDR. So.
Well, and then I thought the the exercise one with the
rhythmic. No, you're fine. So I do a lot of we do walk and talks. We also do somatic movement, or somatic coaching, therapeutic coaching, as well as doing movement that helps with your nervous system regulation, right? So the idea is we want to live in a bigger window of tolerance. So when I'm stressed, I stay in my window of tolerance, right? If I'm dysregulated, I am no longer, my brain actually is offline. My neocortex is offline, and I can't regulate. I physically can't. So we want to teach the body how to handle stress through their trauma, and to be able to, when there is another conflict or issue, or even a tiny fight with your children or your partner or your coworker, you can also, that's when we talk about staying in our integrity, when we can stay regulated and I can communicate clearly, because now my heart's not beating fast. Sometimes people will just shut down and be like, I can't think about words, right? So when we're in conflict, or we're worried, or we have, impending news, right? We want to regulate and teach our nervous system how to stay centered. And so that's what we talk about, using movement through that.
Well, I think that's I'm actually pretty impressed, because some of the things that you're talking about, like it's things that we need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we, kind of get to that where we're able to recognize that? One of the biggest things I think is, a lot of times, is like, we don't necessarily want to admit that we are wrong, or maybe that there's something wrong with us, and it's self-reflection. But it's nothing to be embarrassed about your emotional support, because look, there's a lot of things happening to us, right? And every one of us can tell our story, or how we wake up every morning, and some of us are stressed just to make pay a bill, what I mean, or feed our kids.
Absolutely.
And in this emotional spent that we're dealing with. And two, let's just talk about when you are doing good, right? And you're on this path, but yet you've got all of these things around us, family or friends, that are trying to dump into your bank. And it's the negative bank. How do you tell people, hey, I think you need to make a list of people that you want to get rid of? How do you handle that? Do you say, okay, it's time to make a list, time to let go, time to fire them, or shut them down? How do you handle something like that? Because that it's not just them. It's not just you. It's them too.
Right. In your personal life?
Yeah.
So, we talk about a lot of times, and especially couples coaching, non-negotiables, right? What's my non-negotiable is, if I'm pouring from an empty cup to a person who keeps taking, right? Now I keep giving, so my responsibility is to pull back, right? We're not responsible for their reaction to that, as long as I'm staying in my integrity and being kind in that boundary. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when there are people in our lives who keep taking, right, or cause deep anxiety inside of us, or it's a conversation that they've hurt our feelings and we don't really want to have it because we're afraid of how they will feel.
Yes.
Right? So the reality is how can I, or the ideal is how can I stay clear? Can I communicate with my feelings? Hey, when you did blank, when you called me at 9 o'clock knowing I was asleep, and you've done this all week long, right? And I know you really need me, and I get it. You're really upset. I keep answering the phone, and I can't because I'm tired now. And now it's making me upset because you keep calling me at 9, right? It's not your fault. I haven't told you, but now I'm telling you, hey, if it's after 5, I can't take the phone call.
Yeah.
They'll either respect that or they won't. And if they keep calling at 9, now we have to have another conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point in time, it's like, how do we confront those things that have the tremendous amount of effect to us? And do we also, I think, self-sabotage ourselves a little bit?
Yeah.
I think in some ways we get depressed, and then we start thinking that we're not good enough, or the life is not going to get better. We can't see in front of us. And sometimes we have to figure out how to clear those emotions. And I think that with your program, I think that is such an incredible aspect, because I like the holistic aspects of things, because I think that we can self heal, right? If we're willing to. But you got to be willing to change. And when you change, things around you's got to change. And the people that you hang around with, I think that was one of the things that you put in there. It's also about the people that you hang out with. If you are hanging out with people that are not good for you, but yet you know it, you got to figure this out, because you got one life to live. This is it.
Yeah.
And how much of that are you going to give, right? And what are you trying to do with your life? And if it's just constantly causing turmoil or frustration and anger and anxiety, that negative aspect is, as people come to you and you feel like they're and I'm not saying incurable, but you're like, wow, you're in deep.
I mean, I don't, if they're willing to keep showing up and they're coming to the mat and they're willing to do the hard look at the pain, right?
Right.
If they're willing to do that, I don't think it's, we may have to like call in other colleagues or other professionals or other people, right? But I really do believe in the power of, if you're willing and you're introspective and you're willing to hear it, do the work, and it may not feel good, I do a lot of inner child work. A lot of times that little person inside of us, the reason why we keep the people around us that aren't healthy for us is because as we grew up, probably our primary caretakers, there were things about them that feel familial, those people that aren't healthy for us, and we want them to see us. That little girl inside of me, please see me, because my mom didn't see me this way, or my dad didn't, so I'm going to be enough. And so we will outsource our worthiness to other people and keep them around, because we just know that one of these days they'll choose us like we wanted our parents to choose us, right? And
oh, wow. I think that's spot on. That is so spot on. So I saw this diagram the other day, and I thought it was pretty funny, but it was like very almost true. But it said 0 to 18, there's your childhood. And then it says 18 and up, it says we're kind of refiguring out the childhood. We're like the trauma of childhood, and we're trying to figure it out. And I want to tell people that it's never too late.
Yeah.
You don't have to just suffer through life, and you don't have to take on other people's burdens, and I don't mean to say that ugly, but if you're not healthy mentally and physically, and you're not mentally and physically strong, how are you going to be there for someone else? And I think that's so important. And your therapy, the sessions that you guys put together, put people in making them see the light. That they knew it. They had intuitions that it probably was there. They just didn't know how to get there. And you guys give them that guidance. That intuition of that. The whole time they've been probably thinking about it. You're probably sitting there going, I know you.
Right. Well, it's painful. It's painful to have to recognize. We want to avoid. I do believe, and I know this to be true. If you're going to do trauma work, you have to do grief work. Right? If we're going to, we have to grieve it. And there are so many things that we grieve. And it's not just death. We grieve the loss of a job. We grieve the loss of a marriage. We grieve the fact that, our friend couldn't understand us. We grieve it. We grieve. And that is part of it. And when we complete that emotional cycle, but most people have a hard time wanting to go towards that pain because it is hard. It is painful, right?
Yeah.
And so while hopefully we can say, hey, listen, it's not going to be as painful as you think, and we can take that little girl or that little boy inside of you, we can recognize and let's reparent. You can reparent. What is little Sarah? What is little Carla wanting, right? What does she need? And let's do that now,
You make me want to go into therapy right now.
I mean, it's a fun time. I have a fun time.
I'm probably going to call you now.
Come on.
What does Carla want? You know what Carla wants? A vacation.
Hey, well, little Carla, and here's the thing that's funny is because I will say, okay, hey, listen, right now it feels too much for you. Like, let's not go into, let's find a fuzzy blanket. Let's find something that feels really soft and good. Let's watch a show that you need to, and drink. Let's just drink some water, right? Because sometimes little Sarah just needs to be comforted, and that's okay, because that's maybe what I needed and I didn't get, right?
I like you.
Yes.
You're saying everything I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, we all needed it.
Yeah, I think that, when, and we'll talk about this in a second, but I'm going to talk about how do we get in touch with you and all that. And I want to talk a little bit about you before we get off this podcast. But I think that in some ways or another, we're thrust into being adults, and some of us may not be ready. Yeah. And some of us may take a little bit longer to take on that mature role. And one of the things that I noticed is, okay, both my parents passed, especially I was really close with my father. And so there was something that kind of made me think about something, you don't know that you're like your parents until they pass. And then you realize, oh my gosh, but there's things about your parents that you don't want to be or don't want to repeat. And you have to recognize those things. Like you have to go, wow, I don't want to be that person. And it may take you a while to realize, gosh, I shouldn't be so angry at my child just because she wants some ice cream and you're busy doing something. It's really just something so real about that. We all have that inner child in us. We may be, I'm going to tell you, I'm 52, but there's a part of me that feels like, I feel like I'm still 18. Yeah. I'm still Carla, and I still, so one of the things that I've been doing this past year is really investing in me more. Yeah. Like, I know this sounds silly. Like, I went bought me a new pair of tennis shoes the other day, and I know that sounds crazy, but I felt great because I could buy them. Yes. I could pick out what I wanted, and I was like, that's for me, because my kids came first. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. They got, when they were at the house, they were taken care of. Yeah. And so I wore the shoes with the holes in them. And then I was like, wow, I need to make an effort to go get me some tennis shoes because I need some, because my other ones have holes in them. Yes. So I felt those little, I know it sounds so silly, but that made me feel so good. Like,
it's not silly.
So those little things that we don't realize, take advantage of it. Just, get in your car, like you said, go in there and just scream, or hey, go just wander around Target.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you could buy a bunch of stuff, but
it also doesn't take a lot of, like, I had a pretty tough week last week, and I recognized, I was like, okay, I need a creative outlet. Normally I do an adult dance modern class. I did it for years. I know I was even in the recital. This is crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
Jazz hands,
right? And so I got my guitar restrung, and I set up lessons. So I'm gonna learn. I know a little bit, but I want to really learn how to play. And for me, right? And now I can say that speaks from a place of privilege. I have the resources to be able to do that. But if I didn't, and there's been times in my life where I haven't. And it's the tiny things, right? It doesn't take hundreds of dollars of therapy. It doesn't take, copious amounts of time. We're talking start small, right? Just start noticing, why am I anxious? What does my body need? How can I give that? Can I drink some more water? Can I pause for just a minute? Can I give myself 3 minutes to like regulate, right? Can I listen to a good song? And, dancing and shaking pulls
Yeah.
all that. Like we teach clients, when you
Yeah.
have an adrenaline, we shake, right? We
Yeah.
shake. And so it pulls it all out of your body, right? And
I love it.
so just doing little things like that, buying some cheap chapstick that makes your lips feel, amazing. Those are tiny things.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So you know the movie Runaway Bride,
Mm-hmm.
and a great movie, by the
Yeah,
way.
love
If
it.
anybody's, was it Richard Gere
Richard Gere and
and
Julia Roberts.
oh my gosh, I love that movie. There's a part in the movie that everybody should watch. And remember the part where he says to her, "Do you even know how you like your eggs?"
Uh-huh.
And she didn't even know. So what she did is she cooked different eggs, like, poached eggs, scrambled eggs, cheese eggs. And I was like, when you were saying that, you got to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you that the other day I was like, and it's silly, but I was craving some mac and cheese. And I was like, I'm going to cook me some comfort food. I'm
Yes,
going to
girl.
make me some mac and cheese. I'm going to put me some extra cheese in it. And I'm going to eat all that mac and cheese. It was mine. And it was
Yes.
my, and I was like, I felt so good just to do that little thing like that. So it is, we have to start paying attention to the little things,
Yes.
little things, the things that make us who we are. And as we grew up, that makes us happy. We can't
Mm-hmm.
forget that. We can't forget being that we were children. We forget that sometimes. We forget that has spilled over into our adulthood, and we need to hold on to that. Like you said, grab that blanket,
Mm-hmm.
wrap yourself up in it, go watch some Netflix, take a minute. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so that is so human in us. And I think that we've used other things to regulate that. And that's the TV, news media, social media, that we have replaced that with not the emotional side of things. And we just got
Mm-hmm.
to put those back in order. Listen, I have to tell you, I'm all about it, but I want to talk to you about you before we get off the podcast. So
Okay.
I want to know, we talk about all these things and the things that we're talking about right now, but how do you go about, like you said, you had a tough week
Mm-hmm.
and you have to figure out how to take those emotions and all the things that people are doing to you and saying to you. How do you handle that? Like, is it something that you notice, or like there's a trigger and you're like, okay, I need to get back in order because I have to be good, because I have to
Mm-hmm.
be. Do you do that too? Is that how you
Oh,
handle that?
absolutely. I will, and I say this to client. If I'm expecting you to do it, you best believe I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
I have a mentor, I have a therapist, I have people, because here's the thing. I got into this work because I want to be the best version of myself, and I want people to also have that experience, right? So for me, I know I got to get under a barbell. I have to be working out and lifting heavy. I do, or I am a feral animal. And I have to pray and meditate in the morning, right? That is, even if it's 5 minutes and I've over snoozed, I will do some 5 deep breaths. I will say my mantra and the thing that I'm trying to get out through the day while my coffee is getting prepared, right? Even if it's just 5 minutes. And then throughout the day, I will try to do some somatic work. That may be yell in my car. It may be throw the pancake, right? Because I got to get it out. And then at night, I usually go to bed with like a yoga nidra or something that just helps my whole body relax, right?
Mhm.
So for me, it is the noticing. And I haven't always been great at it. I have learned, and it took me a long time. And healing little Sarah has been my life mission, and now I just adore her.
And then how did you get, like, where did you come from? And then how did you get into this? Like,
Yeah,
because I can see all your passion. Like, you have a lot of passion, and you
yeah.
got to have a lot of passion. You got to have a lot of energy. You got a lot of passion because you got to hit those sessions with just this whole, like, I want you here and I'm here for you and I'm the supporter and I'm your leaner, I'm your teacher. And
Yeah.
you know, how did you get into this? Because this could be hard.
Yeah, it can be. I actually started as a personal trainer for women, and then I was a birth doula. And I started working with women, and I had a personal training studio. And I have, in the little tiny town in Alabama, it blew up. Women wanted to work out. And while they were working out, they wanted to talk. They wanted to, it's like, so I tell people, when you go, you want to talk to your kids, you want to know what they're doing, go build a sandcastle and have a conversation. Do something fun and then start asking, and then see what happens, right? So
Yeah.
women start working out and they want to start talking. And they would say things and I would go, okay. So, you know, and we would just kind of have this. So then I moved from that and I started a 501c3 with a couple of other women called Conquering Life. And it was an empowerment conference and nonprofit organization to help women in the South find their voice. So we had speakers come from all over, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew women needed a place to feel like they could feel safe.
Yeah.
So we had over 100 attendees. We did it for 2 or 3 years, and then we started a nonprofit that was called Help Us Help Her, and that was to help women financially, if they couldn't afford it, send them to therapy or coaching. And so then I was kind of all in that, and then I went to broaden my education to be able to offer services like this, and now moving towards couples and moving towards families, because I truly believe whether they come out of it completely like securely functioning or they find a better path for each of them, I love being in the process to watch these humans try and stumble and wobble and heal and love each other so well. I mean,
Well,
they're
that's
trying.
wonderful, because you see it's such a transformation. You
Yeah.
know, they come in one way and then they go through this and then they leave as different people. I think that can be so satisfying, because somebody needs to do this, right?
Mhm.
They need to be there for someone else, because we are seeing so many people taking their lives and making judgments that are not good, and they end up in the wrong direction and making regrettable choices,
Mhm.
right? That are detrimental to themselves, or they basically feel like they're stuck and they don't know how to handle things. And I think that with you guys, this kind of therapy is so healthy and natural and empowering, just like you said. And I think it is good to know that these things are available to people and more now, and that if you are going through these things, reach out to them. So give us, before we get off the phone on this podcast, give us this, how do people get in touch with you? How do they call you? Tell us a little bit about, how do they reach out to you today,
Yeah,
Sarah?
so if you're in the Huntsville area, it would be Huntsville Integrative Therapy.com. And then you can contact me through there. I'm in Huntsville and Florence, or you can contact me at RenaissanceMindBody.com as well. And so my emails and contact information is all on there. I have a Mind Body Balance is my Instagram, and I have a mindbodybalanceflow.com, and that's some of my birth doula weight training stuff is on there as well.
You're just a little bit of everything.
Just a little of everything,
Little
right?
spice, and a lot. Yeah, definitely
That's
a lot
true.
spicy. I like it.
Uh-huh.
So I welcome you on our podcast, and so informative, so much information. I hope that whoever's listening gets something out of this, and that they get the hope. They don't be afraid. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid. I think that sometimes we're afraid, and we've got to stop being afraid.
Yeah.
It's pick up the phone, call somebody,
Yeah.
get the help, get that help that you are looking for. Figure out who you are as a person,
Yeah.
and you will feel so much happier than ever before. You'll be a better person.
Yeah.
You'll be a better, you will feel more complete if you do these things in your lives. Don't wait. Don't be 90, don't be 100 years old and figure out, oh my gosh, I should have been doing these things the whole time. So
Yeah.
have your enlightenment now. Find the light, get
Yes.
there, and welcome to our podcast. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Carla, so much. I love what you're doing. I appreciate your work so much, and I'm so grateful to have been here.
Well, I adore you. We had such a great intro, and so fun to talk to someone that, Southern girls, we're like,
That's
we'll
right.
rock it. But anyways, thank you for your time. Enjoy the podcast. We'll see you guys soon, and can't wait to see you again. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
I'm doing the. Thank you for joining us on our Coffee and Hustle podcast that we just did with Sarah. And what a great podcast to talk about our emotional well-being and how we are not investing more time in ourselves and we're spending it outwardly. That when we do that, we're kind of unbalanced on handling someone else's situation when we are drained emotionally. When we talk about mental illness and the rise of that happening now, we're seeing these increases at younger ages between 18 to 34, and then we're also seeing increases of it between 35 to 44. We have to really start investing more time in ourselves emotionally, and so that we are becoming more of an emotional investor versus an emotional spender. And there's a difference between that two. It's like thinking about putting time and effort into yourself so that you become a stronger emotional investor. And there are 3 steps that you can really think about when you're putting this together. Is you have to find purpose, and dedicating time emotionally into those resources and reevaluating what's good for you and what's not. And then really truly spending time with the right people that will lift you, and make you better as an emotional investor. So wise. So you really have to pay attention to who you're hanging out with, because that negative impact, those people that are constantly negative or people pulling you down, really are not helping you mentally and can put you in a direction that you really don't want to be. But sometimes it's hard to kind of pull away from that. Sometimes you don't realize it's happening. So sometimes silence, taking some time away, evaluating who you are as individuals, is probably one of the most healthiest things that you can do. Stay tuned to this podcast. Really pay attention. By doing so, really emotionally stabilizing yourself, you can discover a great path and emotional well-being that you can get yourself back on path.